Today marks the 25th anniversary of the US launch of the Super Nintendo, which released on August 23rd, 1991. That is huge. The Super Nintendo is one of my favorite consoles of all time. It was my first console to have my own. We had an Atari and an NES before that, but they were kind of more my sister and brothers, and the Super Nintendo was my gift. I came home from kindergarten after my birthday in October. I saw it there. It came with Super Mario World and a rebate thing. It came with Super Mario All-Stars as well, and I adore it. It has a very, very special place in my heart, some of my favorite games ever. But instead of talking about the best games for the Super Nintendo, I'm actually going to go on with my nostalgia and talk about my 25 games that I own currently. Now, I've had more over the years, but I've lost some, traded some, but I just thought it'd be kind of cool to talk about a lot of these obscure titles, and well, let's get right into it. First, we have Battletoads and Double Dragon, which I kind of previously talked about back in June for the Battletoads anniversary, so I'm not going to go too much into it. I actually don't remember how I got it. I do remember it was in box. I must have got it for a birthday or something. I just remember playing this with my brother and some friends, and it's pretty cool for co-op, but it's also very, very hard. Next, we have Breath of Fire, which I talked about last year for the anniversary, and this was the only Breath of Fire game that I ever owned. I remember I got it, I believe, from Funkoland before it became GameStop. I was just looking for some RPGs because I really liked Super Mario RPG and Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI, and I was just kind of looking for some more stuff. I saw Capcom and I was like, oh, a Capcom RPG, that sounds kind of cool because I, love Mega Man and I don't want to go through another list, but yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I think in terms of games, I like the second one better because I rented that quite a bit actually, but the first game has a very special place in my heart because I did start with the first game, and I remember getting stuck a lot. There was like this robot and I over leveled because I had no idea how to pilot it, but very, very weird memories of this game. I would love to play more of it, even past the retrospective that I did before, but yeah, kind of one of my earlier RPGs, I'd say. Ooh, Chocos Caper. Now, this game I remember my dad got at this weird it was a bar, essentially, called the Sports Palace. And they don't really sell games or whatever, but he happened to see this going in there and kind of browsed and saw this game and bought it. I think it was like $10 or something like that. But my sister and dad played it quite a bit. I remember always getting to the very last level, but it is a hard game. Really, really cute and unique, and I had no idea that I was part of this other series called Joe and Mac until, just kind of actually doing this YouTube stuff and my articles and whatnot. But yeah, it's part of this other series. I had no idea, but I really, really like it a lot. It's not a fantastic game in terms of platformers, I'd say, for the Super Nintendo, but in terms of my heart, it's a classic. Now here we go, Donkey Kong Country. This is such a fantastic story. So I had this wooden toy box in my room, right? I had toys in there. At the time of my age, I never really went in there, but I did store a lot of things in there. Anyway, one day I went to go find something. I had lost whatever, a toy or whatever, and I found Donkey Kong Country, and this was just kind of like a week, maybe two before Christmas, and I was just like, oh, hey bro, look what mom hid in my toy chest, unknowingly. And then we confronted her about it, and she says, you don't ever go in that toy box anyway, why would you go in there? So she kind of hid it in the most obvious place, which is kind of insane, but she let us take it out early and play with it, and it was awesome. It, at that time, it blew my mind. And I think around this time, before I got the game, I had the VHS that they sent out to everybody, and I was just getting so pumped for the game, and she knew about it, and I think she got a really good check that year or some kind of bonus, so that's why she was able to afford it, because it was kind of hard to find in that first year, and pretty expensive too, but I don't think it's as classic as maybe the second one as my favorite, but I do love it quite a bit. Fighter's History. Now here is a prime example of my love for fighting games bloomed for the Super Nintendo and subsequently died in the Super Nintendo era. I mean, having the Super Nintendo at that age was the perfect thing for friends to come over and, fight over without having to punch, And I never really continued growing up. I dabbled here and there, but the Super Nintendo was probably home to some of the best fighting games ever, or at least where they started. And Fighter's history, I don't know if I got this for a present or I don't remember the origins, but I don't remember being that enthused when I got it. But I don't like it particularly that well, but I played the shit out of it. I probably beat every single character in there, got their story, even though there wasn't much. And it really felt to me like a really cheap knockoff of Street Fighter, but somehow I lost Street Fighter, so this was the only fighting game I had besides another game I'll go into later, and I just like this one a little bit more than the other one because it was more classic and less violent, I suppose. But let's now move into Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. Again, another RPG I found via FuncoLand because I had gotten into the Square RPGs, and I thought, oh, another Final Fantasy game, I never heard of this one. This must also be fantastic, just like Final Fantasy VI. And no, it is not. It's not a terrible RPG, but it is a very, very odd spin-off for the series. And I do remember liking it quite a bit because there's a ninja in there called Tristram. And I was just like, oh my god, that guy's name is very close to mine. It has some pretty good music. It's more along the line of something I would say like maybe Dragon Quest or like a Phantasy Star. I don't really remember that much of the game that much aside from fighting things and gaining crystals and that ninja. Playing the gameplay, it's actually kind of a very easy game, but yeah, it's not high on the Final Fantasy spin-off list or Square RPGs per se, but it's fine. Frantic Flea has to be the worst game I own. Oh, I remember, I believe my dad gave it to me, and he was just so happy. He was like, oh, look, I bought you a game. I was like, Frantic Flea, never heard of this one. And it's kind of like a puzzle game. You're this flea, and you're trying to recapture your fleas who are being held by these weird things, and it's kind of like a platformer, but you're just kind of running around a maze of platforms and levels and trying to get your people back in their like little maze area. And I don't think he spent that much in it. I don't remember if it was a Christmas present or whatever. It was just kind of like a random thing that he found, but it was in box, and for a long time I kept that box and I destroyed it because I'm just like, who would ever want to have this saved? But yeah, not a good game, not a good game. Home Alone is another bad game, but my family played the crap out of this game. I don't remember ever beating it, but I do remember later in the game that you fought like giant spiders. So, it's based on the movie, of course, and you're going throughout the house and you're dropping all the valuables you gather up, and you can only hold so many, then you drop them in the safe to keep them away from the wet bandits. And then you're fighting the wet bandits. You can't really kill them. I guess you get a BB gun later on, and I think they pop off screen. But you have a water gun mostly, and you just kind of stun them and walk away, and you can do the same through like some spiders and animals, because there has to be some other adversaries, of course. But you're just going through these very plain levels, and just the music just got stuck in my head so much. Again, I don't think this was any kind of present. I think it was just kind of a random thing that they found, or maybe it was like a Christmas present. I don't know. I do remember watching the movie a lot, so maybe that's why they got it for me. But it's not great, but despite that, I have some good memories sitting down with my family trying to beat this game, which I don't think we ever did. Okay, now here's Killer Instinct, the other aforementioned game I had. And it was a black cartridge, one of my most valuable cartridges, and I just remember, I believe this was a Christmas present. I think this was along the lines of Mortal Kombat in terms of hype, and I played it over my cousins a bit. I believe the second one. So I think this was more of a present for my brother since he was older, and he was also really into fighting games and, Mortal Kombat as well. So I think that's how we came about to get it. My parents didn't really care that much about like violent games, as we'll get into later. Especially because my dad liked to play a lot of games. Not fighting games per se, but yeah. I don't really have much to say about this game. I don't think it holds up that well. I think the digitized graphics, just like Donkey Kong, don't look great. But, you know, it is what it is, I suppose. Kirby Superstar. I believe this was a Christmas present, and I was so excited because I had played the Game Boy games from my cousin quite a bit, and I was so excited for this game, looking at magazines and stuff like that, and to have that come when it came out that year, in 95 or 96, one of those two. I just loved it so much. I replayed it so many times. My sister didn't get into it crazily enough, even though she liked cute platformers and Mario. But my dad and I played it quite a bit together. And, you know, he had his own file, I had my own file. My battery's kind of dead in it, so it keeps on erasing things, which kind of sucks. But I do have the enhanced DS version. Then again, my dad and I kind of rekindled over when that came out sometime in the DS's lifespan. But it was a bunch of kind of some remakes of some earlier games and some new adventures, all very, very short. There's no big story, but it's just a lot of kind of a Kirby collection kind of thing. And it was really, really fun. Just one of the best Kirby games. I'll maybe go more into it for the Kirby retrospective in some year. But it's just one of my favorite games of all time. And I am very thankful that I had the opportunity to own it, and I still have it on my shelf. The Legend of the Mystical Ninja. Now, I just went over this in May for my Goemon retrospective, but I remember playing this first at a friend's house a lot, and then I happened to go to Shopko. I don't remember if it was like a report card or I had some money or whatever, but I was able to pick out a game, and it was around 20 bucks or something like that. It was discounted. And the box art looked really cool to me, and the back of the box looked great. I'm like, oh, this is actually a game that I played at my friend's house. So I got it. I have yet to beat it real quick. But yeah, I really gotta tackle that at some point. But I replayed it so many times and got so close. But the password system was just awful in that game, just so awful. But yeah, I don't need to talk about that much again since I just talked about it. But yeah, just a fantastic game. I love the Goemon series, even though we really don't have a lot in America. And what better way to end part 1 than with my favorite Super Nintendo game and favorite Zelda? Of course, we have A Link to the Past. Now, this was a gift. I think it was actually for my birthday. And I kind of remember being told to go to my room and kind of search for it, essentially. And I had this big Coke bottle. My mom used to work at a gas station. They had these standees where they put a bunch of Coke in. And she took it home for me because I just love weird, cool things like that back in the day. I still wish I kind of had it. Anyway, they buried it back basically in there. There was like a little trapdoor where you kept the ice or there's some kind of ventilation. But they hid it in there in my closet. I was so excited. And I kind of only played Zelda a little bit at my cousin's both game. Again, you'll be seeing my cousin a lot because he kind of only lived 2 blocks away, and his family was a little bit more situated, so I borrowed a lot from him. Anyway, I just remember being so enthralled with this game. I beat it, even as a kid, I beat it so many times. Because just my Super Nintendo was just always there for me. Because this was one of my favorite games, I just remember playing it back and forth. Sadly, I lost my copy of this in high school. My friend asked to borrow it. It was a girl. I was kind of romantic with her sister at the time, so I felt a little bit obligated. And plus, she was in my class and I liked her a lot as well. And I never got it back. So I kind of put it out of my mind until 2011. I kind of found a bunch of retro sites, part of my task as doing some research projects, and I bought quite a few games at that point from a lot of retro things to basically fan out my SNES library that I never had as a kid, you know, the best games instead of a lot of the bad games that there were. But yeah, I replaced my copy. It wasn't actually that expensive too. I think it was like 20 bucks or something that I got this for in a very nice condition. Just the cartridge, of course, but yeah. Yeah, it's just so magical. I've talked about it a lot in a lot of other videos, but man, I don't think I ever showed that story before about getting it as a present, then losing it, then regaining it. But for all the reasons and more, I'll be talking about Zelda Link to the Past for next year in more detail, for the 25th anniversary of Zelda in the US. But yeah, there's no better way to end this retrospective than with that. So stay tuned for part 2. Did you know that was a reaction examiner video? If you liked it, you should subscribe to me to keep up with everything that I'm doing. Also, if you have some other interests, like sex for example, check out Tomups, which is a comedy sex podcast thing wherein my best friend and I check out the weird and abnormal and the erotic. And of course you should support me on Patreon because hey, I want to make the channel better and I want your help to do so. Plus, if you want to check out my writing, check out Game Jerk where I have archives and new stuff for all projects, okay? You can find all the stuff and more in the description with the links below. Thanks for watching and I will see you all next time.